Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host and producer of Pause and Rewind, the podcast that chats to changemakers, thought leaders and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And, let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now, but how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences, realisations and relationships in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now, because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes and a little of what makes our guest tick. So whether you're here for insights or inspo or simply want to know about your heroes, this podcast is for you. You might never know someone's story, but if you pay attention, you'll hear it, you'll see it and you'll feel it. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hey there, and welcome to this episode of Pause and Rewind. We are over halfway through season 4, which feels a little bit crazy to be honest, but the conversations are coming through, and today is no exception. I am chatting to the incredible Z Monteiro. I'm not going to lie, Z is one of the coolest and wisest people I know, and I know that you're going to take that away from this conversation. Z is a multifaceted and multi-talented writer, speaker, consultant and facilitator whose work largely centres around anti-racism, intersectionality, queerness and neurodivergence. I've heard Z speak loads around kind of like the importance of LGBTQ plus history and finding themselves in the archives. Z is someone that I first came across way before I met them. They wrote an article for We Create Space, where Z is a member of our collective We Create Space, around being both non-binary and a Black woman. It was an incredibly powerful piece of writing, a deeply personal self-reflections that challenges assumptions around trans and non-binary identity and experiences. I'm so grateful that I get to work with Z. I'm so grateful for this conversation as well. We cover a lot of topics. Please do take care of yourself whilst listening. We talk about mental health, the landscape today. But yeah, there's loads to take away. Enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Here it is. Cheers. Hey Z, welcome to Pause and Rewind. It is brilliant to have you here.
Hiya, how you doing, Neil? Glad to be here.
I'm going to start with the question that I like to kick things off, and that is, what does the world look like for Z Monteiro right now?
It's looking quiet, but at the same time also very busy, and I don't know how to even explain that. I think internally I feel in between both. I feel like if there's a very big urge to a different path, and I'm trying to understand what that looks like for me. So there's a bit of a quiet moment, or I'm coordinating that quietness for myself, so I can actually really think a little bit deeply. Whilst outside the world is going so fast, and I cannot keep up with it. So that is where I'm at right now.
I mean, those quiet times, we don't tend to lean into those enough. So it's really great to hear someone talk about how they're actually kind of like, leaning into that and owning it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think lockdown really changed that for me because we were forced to stay inside. And I think you have to just pretty much focus on, you cannot really move anywhere. So everything that is internal becomes out external, and you're now dealing with all these, the feelings that you didn't have time to feel. And I think I tried to lean into that a little bit, whilst also, of course, being outside because of the Black Lives Matter and Trans Lives Matter movement. And I feel like that is happening again, but not at the extent, not at the same intensity that it was a couple of years back. I mean, it's almost been 5 years. No, it's been 5 years.
It's been 5 years. Crazy, right?
Yeah. So I feel like I've learned a lot from that, and I know how to lean into it a little bit more, which is good.
Yeah. So for me, I established this whole sense of quietness and independence during COVID that I never realised that I'd had before.
No, like you're kind of forced, right?
Yeah.
You're forced to be with yourself. You're kind of forced to be in silence. a little bit, and I think there was just everything was at the forefront, right? It was right in front of you, and there was a part of me that really, really enjoyed it, but
Mm,
it was also a part of me that that struggled with it. And I feel like this is the second time that I'm going through that changes. Those changes,
mm.
of course, with everything that's going outside and what's happening in the world. Um, but I feel like readier. That's even a word for it.
It is
So
now.
yeah, I'm curating it. I'm curating it a little bit better.
And what does and what are you curating? Because you do so like so many of us that appear on this
Yeah.
podcast and work in the spaces we work in, we have a lot of different things. And you're someone that is multi-talented, multifaceted, a host, a speaker, a facilitator, consultant, storyteller, creative. What is it that you're creating? How do you manage all of that?
What is it that I'm creating? Good question. What is it that I'm creating? I feel like, although unconsciously, but I'm trying to make it very conscious, I'm just creating a space where people can be.
Mm,
And I think when I wanted to speak more about my own journey, aka when I wanted to become a speaker, I've always been dabbling into it a little bit, but when I really made the decision to become a speaker and become a writer and center myself in that, whatever that looked like, I first started to really carve a space for myself that I was allowed to be there, that I was allowed to exist, because I felt that the stories that I was seeing and or reading, the people that I was seeing, they weren't capturing me
mm,
in all my intersectionalities, in all my complexities. But up until that point, so that I want to say 21, I did not know how to create that space for myself, and that's where I feel 2020. So when we went into lockdown, that I was forced to think about that and understand more about myself. So it's been quite an ongoing journey for me. And I feel because I'm much more in a safer environment and I've created a safe space for myself where I feel more comfortable being who I am, and I found the right people, you being one of them, and creating this space as well. But also with We Create Space, of course, creating that space. I feel that I am then able to enter into that space and feel comfortable and safe. So I think, yeah, that's kind of like how it started for me. I just wanted to create a space where I was seen, and now I am slowly becoming a person where now other people are seeing themselves in my writing and in the way that I'm speaking as well, which I hope that I'm doing well. Because it feels like I have a responsibility, even though, I'm not an influencer in that way. But, I think everything that I do is important. And I think people need to feel safe in words and in themselves and recognizing people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, you are doing that. Rest assured, like as someone that works alongside you and with you and sees you in spaces and the way you're showing
Mm,
up, you are doing that. But not just seen, but also celebrated. It's really beautiful to
mm,
see you being celebrated and platformed the way you are
thank you.
because like I said, you are so talented, and particularly at storytelling
Mm,
and that being able to see yourself. I've heard you speak about it several times, and I never tire of hearing from it around how you had to find yourself in the archives in order to show up the way you
mm,
do. When it comes
yeah.
to the lack of diversity representation in historical figures, role models, the people out there that give us the
Yeah.
permission to show up the way we do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first time, and it's quite interesting because I created a website called Kingsland, but with a Q. So it kind of reads like Queens, but it's kind of Kings. And at that time, I still went through the world as a masculine presenting woman.
Mm,
And that was literally 2020 that I created that. Although I knew that that was not me, I was not ready yet to fully start my transition. I started that in January of 21, which was also very interesting. So I created for 3 months from April, May, June, July. I created the the website, and then in January the year after that, I started testosterone, which is very interesting. Such a short time. But what I was really focusing on was creating an overview with all the resources that I found, which were predominantly American resources, and I'm not American, I'm Dutch. But it that was the start of understanding who I was. And I put it out straight away as well, right? So I created the website. I had time to create the website because we were not working at the time. We were indoors. The only thing that I could do was just create something for myself. But I also wanted to create it for other people. And of course, years coming up to that, I already had a lot of resources. I just never had a designated space for it. So yeah, I think that website was the first one where I just created a whole overview of archives, and I wrote about being a soft, masculine presenting woman. And that lasted for 6 months. Then I was like, maybe I need to investigate it a little bit more. And I started investigating it in January of 21 with testosterone, and it's been a journey so far.
In a journey. I know we're gonna talk about that, but
Yeah.
you really do show up in a way that encourages other people to show up as their authentic selves. And I remember the first time I came across your work was the
Mm,
We Create Space article, being both non-binary and a black woman.
mhm.
And it was really interesting to hear you share earlier this month during Black History Month about the reception that that article received.
Yeah. Yeah, I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
I was not. I am still blown away, and it's still emotional in some way. Like
Yeah.
it feels, it feels that I'm heard. I am. It's
Mm.
not just me. I am not. When other people, it's like I'm not crazy. I'm not
Yeah.
crazy. What I'm saying is correct, and it's correct for people who are black, like myself, who are trying to find themselves in not the quote unquote the man and woman, but are trying to find themselves in the energy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I received so many messages from people, and they're like, "Well, I think I understand what you're saying," and I finally you put it into words. I don't have to choose. I don't have to choose, right? And I think that is also where I feel quite, on one hand, there's a part of me that's like sad that I didn't start my transition earlier.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also I'm also okay with that because I understand the role that Black womanhood played in my life. And I think if I started transitioning sooner, so in my teens, I think I would have squandered that or squashed that or assumed that it should have not been, should have not existed in that way, because the focus was so much. And when I started testosterone, I was like, I want to look very, very, very masculine. And I think because I was so okay with my womanhood as well and my femininity, it kind of sometimes my masculinity overlapped it, and then my femininity came back, and it kind of like had an internal conversation with itself, and it was very interesting. But it was so good to have people find themselves in my writing, and I was like, oh, okay, I think I'm a writer. Like I think I'm a writer. I think I'm, when because for me it's I write for myself, but yeah, it's like, oh, okay, I think I have something here. I
Yeah.
think that I got something here, and I didn't know. I was overwhelmed by the messages and the amount of likes, and that also still people are resharing it.
Yeah.
I was not expecting it.
No,
I was
it's
not
still
expecting.
it's still such a search for and read and engaged with article. I mean, it was, I read this article before I met you.
Yeah,
And I think what it does is it challenges this notions that trans or non-binary folk don't like their bodies, that
yeah,
they can't tap into themselves, their whole selves. They have to eradicate this part. It's all about dysphoria. And actually I think the way you share your story really challenges that. And shows
yeah.
in such a it shows the vastity of different experiences.
Yeah, I think it's a pushback, right,
Mm,
on what we are expected to be. And I think as Black people, we are already limited by that, because it is the survival of, just thinking about surviving, right? And and surviving automatically means what the other person is doing, that could be a safety net, right? So diving into, getting education, getting a good, good, pretty much my parents were like, get your education, get a house, get all those things, and then at one point a family. And I was like, I have none of that, but I have myself now. Thank God. And it was just more of like a tick of the box. And I think a lot of gay people as well, if we're, or gay queer who are not in that transition, also understand that,
mm.
right? That their journey looks very different from the rest. And I think, yeah, it was just very interesting to take up space. I took up space in that. I took up
Yeah.
space in my body first, fearfully, I might have to say. I was
Yeah.
very terrified, because I didn't know if what I was going to do was going to be right for me. Um, but like the moment that I put testosterone on my shoulder, because you have to rub it in, I was like, I made the right decision.
Yeah. Right.
Like it was
That
right
instant.
there. It was
Right.
not even the conversation with the psychologist. It was not even the fact that I mean, I was excited. I was excited and I was nervous and I was excited and I was nervous. And then it arrived. And then the 1st of February, which is LGBT History Month, um, I was also like, okay, we're going to do this. And I was like, okay, I need to record it, which I hate. I still dislike, I still dislike it, but I'm getting better at it. And I put it on and I was like, yep, I made the right decision, which is strange, but good.
When you think back to that snap moment of right decision last year with your top surgery, and when you
Yeah.
think when you know that was huge, and you talk about fearfully, and I imagine there was so much kind of so many different thoughts going through at that stage, which I've also heard you talk about, so I know that's the case. When you think about that, and you owned your top surgery, you had a big celebration. We went to the
Yeah.
sun. You know, I've
Yeah.
seen you out in a harness, owning yourself and owning your
Yeah.
body. When you think back to those first moments of fear, what do you think you'd say to someone who is in that same position
Mm.
and going through that and experiencing those emotions?
I mean, I'm still leaning into the fear, but I feel, as in there's so much to uncover with fear because I grew up with, even though powerful but fearful parents.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to protect me, right? Everything that they do, they wanted to protect me, but their protection, impacted my understanding of myself. So that is, I feel like there was a lot of undoing. And I've been in therapy. I talk openly about that. I've
Everyone
been in,
should be.
sorry,
Everyone should be.
everybody should be. And what I did was I chose specifically a Black woman who was around the age of my parents so
Okay.
that I could change, rephrase, reframe the stories that my parents told me and actually have somebody who was a bit more educated in the field, who is also a parent themselves, who, had a broader scope of identities in the way that my parents did not have. And I think in the end, I realized, because I was also very fearful during my transition, because I still also did not know 2 years into having, starting testosterone, that I was going to have top surgery. I was still not. I was not 100% on that because again, I am a Black woman, but I am also non-binary, right? And that is also where that sort of story came from. Um, but I feel like the more that I leaned into fear, that is also where the understanding of myself came in. I don't want to say from fear to power, but that is a bit what it feels like. I understood that fear was there to protect me, but it's not always right, right? Because I don't know I don't know what protection looks like. We make assumptions as people and as a society what protection looks like for a person,
Mm.
right? For me to protect myself, is to actually go on testosterone. For me to protect myself is to actually have top surgery. For me to protect myself was actually moving away from home, from Holland, and starting over. It is not automatically getting in a house or getting, being part of having a relationship straight away. As in, I felt that that was very much external of myself. These are things that I put in my life and people that I put in my life to make myself feel safe. And that is 100% true, especially the people part of it. But it's not all, because if I don't feel safe, if I don't feel protected by me, how does that work?
Yeah.
So fear has guided me, has made me have internal dialogues with myself that at one point I was like, stop bullshitting yourself, please. Like, is this real, or is it your parents? Is this society? Is it you? Is it your younger self? Is it, like, really diving into it? But fear can give you a lot of answers, but you need to dance with it. You need to dance with it.
I love you need to dance with fear. That is a slogan right there. And I guess a lot of these expectations and assumptions around what protects us and what gives us security, they
Mhm.
are rooted in heteronormativity and societal expectations.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
yeah, they are rooted in societal expectations. And I think with everything that's going on in the world, we as a society, as the people who do not, there are enough people that do not agree with that, right? That's why we have this
Mhm.
clash. That's why we have the clash, right? We had Black Lives Matter and Trans Lives Matter, and now the other people want to hear themselves, right?
Yeah.
And these are the people who want to keep things the same because that is for them protection. But that is
Yeah.
not protection for me. That's not safety for me. So I think it works for some people, but it doesn't work for most people, as we
Yeah.
see with the Me Too movement, right? As we see with the Movember that is coming up, right? These are global issues, but people have not considered that at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
It's
it's it's a it's a global movement.
it's the I think listening to you talk about fear, what comes to me is it's the either the queer or say the queer way of dealing with fear or the marginalized way of dealing with fear is to do something about it, and we kind of have to face
Mm.
it head on because we don't have another choice.
Yeah, we don't.
But
Um,
for other people, the tendency is to shun it or run away from it.
yeah, but
Mm.
but that is also societal to run away from something, right?
Yeah,
So it is
yeah,
societal from because it's specifically thinking I grew up as a woman. I was trained to become a woman, right? Um, and you're supposed to find yourself in the hands of a man because that is what protection and safety looks like. And thank God, my parents were already very different from that. They're like, just get your own, do your own thing. But I think somewhere in the back of their minds, they did maybe want to, because that is also how they were gonna get grandchildren, right? Because that is how it works. Um, that is, I think, how people made assumptions, and it makes. I mean, I hid myself for a very long time. I waited a very long time to come out to my parents because I wanted to make sure that I understand myself first fully. Because I came out when I was 29, which is late. I'm 35 now. Late. There's no late, but
yeah, yeah.
it's in you know, for some people it's quite late because most people feel comfortable coming out in their teens or 20s, early 20s, and I didn't because I didn't feel that I was able to fully understand myself, and that is because gender and sexuality was happening, right? They were happening at the
Yeah.
same time. Um, so yeah, it's. I think that's also maybe why I'm doing so many things. Why I'm facilitating and also hosting and also writing and also, trying to speak, and everything is coming out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Everything is just coming out, and I just need to feel like I have to catch myself, right? But yeah, I'm making space for myself. I guess that's what it means.
You are, and I wonder, how much of that needing to understand yourself first and that self-analysis, because you are such a reflective person as well. How much of that do you think ties into perhaps your neurodivergence?
Good question. I think, I mean, I've always been, just like I've always been trans, I've also always been neurodivergent. Um, so I was always a person that, if I can always see it on the test, A, B, C, and D. I always saw something in the D, whilst everybody else was like, no, it's A or it's B or maybe it's C. But like, I could always see something else, which really annoyed me because I was always close, but I was still far, far away.
Mhm.
And that has been my journey. Is always doing great in school, but or doing great in class, but then when the exam came, failing all of that. And weirdly, I think that that also impacted the way that I understand my transness now. Um, but I think, yeah, being neurodivergent means that I am lucky that I think about certain things differently in a way that other people might have not. It means that I am thinking more broadly about different perspectives, and maybe it makes me also a bit more reflective. I am not scared to look at all the sides of me. Because why should I? Why should I be afraid? It's all inside me. Why should I be afraid of something that is inside of me? Um, I'm not. For me, I'm always thinking, as long as you physically, emotionally, spiritually don't hurt someone else, and you physically, emotionally, and spiritually don't hurt yourself, and you have guidance. And for me, the guidance is having a therapist. For me, the guidance is having great friends who are also reflective in the way that I am. I'm good. I can ask all the questions. So yeah, yeah. I think I think my neurodivergence has helped me um, follow a very slim, thin line, but I managed to be able to understand myself because I am neurodivergent. I know how this line works for me. It goes everywhere. It's sometimes a bit too insane and intense, and sometimes I feel I'm going to fall off this very thin line that I'm walking on. But for some reason, I've always managed to find myself back on this line, and I'm trying
Yeah.
to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think I'm also trusting that a little bit more.
And I think it's the fact that you've spoke. I've heard you speak about it before. Something else, and it's just like all of those intersections make up you who you are. They're inseparable. They're all part of you. So I think all of them probably keep you on that line because you know yourself better than anyone knows
Yeah,
you. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. You're right. I
yeah.
do, and I feel like I'm taking more space in that.
Good, good. That's beautiful to hear because some people are so self-deprecating about it, and
Yeah,
actually, yeah, I know me. I know who I am, and that there's a real
yeah,
beauty and
yeah.
power. There's a power
Exactly.
in that. There's a power in that.
There is a power in that, and I finally feel that I understand the power more. If that
Good.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I am so excited to dive into the origin story with you. So, with that, are you ready to pause and rewind?
Yes, I am ready to pause and rewind, Neil. Let's see what
Here
you
we
got.
go. Here we go. Take, take me back. Tell me all about Little Z.
Little Z. Um, Little Z was very active. Um, Always bringing people together. Always wanted to be friends with everyone, boys and girls and teachers and head teacher, and I love dogs and cats, and I just loved everyone. And I was also, he was also a really quiet person sometimes, and really introspective. I totally forgot actually that I was quite introspective. Maybe this is also why I'm doing very reflective. I loved my little bike. And I literally saw it today again. And it was, I mean, I don't understand why my parents didn't think that I was trans because Jesus. It is literally a mountain bike, like a really mini mountain bike. I was 6. 6, 7. It was my favorite bike. And it was both pink and blue. And I'm like, hello, hello, hello. What do you mean? So I was like, parents, did you know something that I didn't know about myself? Hmm? But yeah, I was very vibrant as a kid. Yeah.
How much of little Z do you see in yourself now?
Oh, I'm back.
You're
Like
back.
that is, I'm
That is
back.
so interesting that you're back because I often talk about the fact that, and actually it's come up a couple of times on here, is that there is somewhere along the way, either you're figuring yourself out or it's pushed down in you, masking,
Mm,
but there comes a point where you step into your own, where you revisit that younger self and you can align much more with them again. So the fact that you just said, I'm back,
yeah.
really speaks to my thinking around that as well.
Yeah. Um, I think I think if I look back to my childhood self, I had a great time. And I think also what made it really good was that my parents um, did a really good job of allowing me to simply be a kid. Like, really did a good job. But I think the older that we got, the more fearful they were,
Mm,
and because they're two black um, girls becoming women in a predominantly white area,
yeah.
um, and you know, they were both very pretty girls. So I think there was some fear there. I mean, it's also very important to state that my parents were both first-time immigrants
Okay.
from Cape Verdean Islands, and they did a lot of their growing up. I mean, a little bit different for both of my parents, but it was during the revolution, you
Okay.
know. So it was a revolution, but it was war.
Yeah.
So for me, um, I understand why they were afraid because their teens, their early 20s, um, was during a revolution. It was a Pan Africanist revolution, which is good. Um, but it leaves its marks. So I think my parents did really well, but it was became more and more difficult to become myself.
Yeah.
Of course, when puberty hit, I've gone now through two puberties. I've gone through the one with the estrogen and the one with the testosterone, and um, I don't recommend it for people, but it gave me insight into myself
Yeah.
more. But yeah, it was not easy.
Did your parents, do you feel that perhaps they protected you to the point of maybe overprotection that you maybe didn't experience things the way you wanted to at the time?
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%, 100%. And I wholeheartedly believe that they did the best that they could.
for sure.
And I do think that because I was already a very I was a kid who was like really wanting to be friends with strangers. So, you don't really want that. Like, even though that's great, it's also like, see, please come back. Like, don't
Yeah.
speak to anyone and everyone and just run off. I was that child. If I saw some water somewhere in the distance, I would run to it. I just wanted to be swimming, right? So I was a very free child,
Yeah.
and I think that, of course, is difficult for
Of
any parent.
course. Of
So I
course.
think also, them being first-time immigrants in the Netherlands and learning a language, and having two children, and then having me as a child who was very fluid, but
Yeah.
that fluidity wanting to take up more space, and they didn't know how to navigate that fluidity, the gender fluidity specifically. They allowed it, but not all the time.
Yeah. It
And
was a
for me, it was also
different time in the world as
a
well.
different time. I mean, it was the 90s.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting, yeah.
And what were you like at school?
Um, I feel that I mean, preteen, I was definitely driven. Again, chatty, a little bit too chatty sometimes, but I wanted to do really well. I wanted to be outside. I mean, my favorite subject was being outside and on the playground. I didn't really want to be inside or watching TVs, watching TV. And what I love the most is, I don't know if you had the same, where they rolled in the TV when
Yeah.
you had to watch something on the screen. Best. I was excited. I was elated. But I was driven, and I wanted to understand. But there were moments where I felt it was very difficult for me to understand certain things. As a child, also, I experienced, even though I was very expressive, I was also very anxious. I think from the age of 8, 7, 8, I became a very anxious person. Now, in hindsight, I also understand that that had something to do with my gender, that I wanted to be playing with the boys more, and they didn't allow me. And I had to, this slowly, I needed to change a little bit who I was, but I became anxious as a person, as a child. And I always had my my emotions were very expressive. So I was also, if I was angry, I was really angry, and I would cry, and I would scream, and I would. So even though I was excited in one way, and I brought people together, I was also just very, very angry, and I would feel emotions very deeply. And now we know it is ADHD, right? You feel the two sides.
Yeah.
You're either really happy or really angry or really sad. And my parents were also like, "Oh, okay, you're just a very expressive child." And I
Mm.
think they tried to handle that, but it wasn't really the easiest. But yeah, so there was also, of course, this whole other part of me that my parents navigated as well. Needed to navigate, and I needed to navigate, but I didn't understand. I didn't. I
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't have words for it.
Have you had conversations with them since that kind of is able to tap back into that so that you can talk through that together in terms of trying to understand what was happening?
No, actually, I haven't. Um, I think there's still some conversations with them, mainly regarding my teen years, but
Mm.
not so much like during like puberty, because that is when life became very tough for me.
What did that look
Um,
like?
Isolation,
Okay.
quiet, angry, very sad, very difficult to make to study. I found school very, very difficult. I did not, also dressing, I did not know what to wear. In the Netherlands, you could wear whatever, and I always was very confused about clothes and didn't want to wear women's clothes, but also at the same time didn't know how to, like, not. I wanted to wear boys' clothes, but I also wasn't a boy, and I didn't want to be a boy, and I didn't want to deal with the whole drama, even though, I would still wear boys' clothes. Um, it was very confusing, very confusing. And when I was 16, I don't remember exactly, but I went into a very deep depression. And that was mainly because I had slow thyroid. So I was diagnosed with
Mhm.
slow thyroid, which is common. Um, but there were also, of course, now, in hindsight, it was the gender.
Yeah.
It was, did I have friends who really understood me? And, when you're 15, you're kind of doing what the rest is doing. You don't want to be that different. But even just by being myself, I was different, and I did
Mm.
not like that,
Yeah.
And again, I was in a predominantly white area, white space, white school. It was a lot.
Yeah. It's
So,
a lot. What I wonder I mean, what did support and love feel like at the time? Was that accessible to you? Did you receive it? And then what did you think about the world experiencing those emotions at such a young age without the maturity and language to identify it?
um, did I receive the love and support? I want to say not in the way that I needed to.
Okay.
I needed a lot. I mean, my parents allowed me to have space,
Hmm.
because what else can you do when you have an expressive child who's very angry, or teen that is very, very angry, and I want to say aggressive, emotionally very, very aggressive. Um, but I also could not. They tried. I remember that they tried. Um, but I couldn't understand what was going inside me. I couldn't understand what the decisions that my parents made with me, but also kind of for me, and it's just all very confusing.
Yeah.
Um, so no, I did not. Here and there, I found, like a family member that I felt really a bit more comfortable with, but most of the time, I was just in my room. I was very much isolating. I found a lot of comfort in films, old films. Felt a lot of comfort in rereading the same. Just like understanding more about Black history. So from the age of 16, I really dived into Black history. And I was like, okay, I feel more comfortable. So I
Yeah.
think there's this, again, it was very much focused on Blackness, but I did not know it was transness that also was going to be impacting my life as well.
Yeah, it sounds like the comfort you found was in culture and kind of seeing what was out there in the world in the absence of
Yeah.
a lack of in the absence of understanding around who you are and what was going on by the people around you,
Yeah.
your way of sourcing that was through culture and cultural references and history.
Yeah. Yeah. I took a lot of pride in that. And I grew up in that as well. My parents were quite pro Black. They were they were womanists, and of course they had their, I mean, as much as they could be, because of course they had, again, they come from a very intense, their story is very intense, and the culture that they grew up in are, they are persevering a lot, so as much as they could, and of course Black culture was up and coming, right? I mean, I
Mm.
grew up during hip hop era
Yeah.
and R&B. Like the 90s was the best time. The 90s was honestly the best time. I mean, I
Love
grew up with X-Men. Like, come on, so TV was at its all-time high, music was at its all. I mean, we can talk about how women were portrayed specifically, but it was, I grew up with TLC, and the way that they, and I think also what was really comfortable about Black culture and that era was that Black culture was women dressing masculine,
Mm.
right? Women dressing or wearing very oversized clothing, and I think because Blackness was so creative, I still had an outlet here and there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I also then understood that I was not a Black American per se, so I didn't really like feel that I could take up space in that way. But it did allow me to know that there was creativity. I just
Yeah.
needed to figure out what my creativity was, and I didn't know how to go about it. To
Yeah.
be
I guess
fair.
whilst honoring all the different intersections and not just the Blackness. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
I wonder in that feel in those teenage years of you've used kind of angry and sad and isolated. What was the breaking point? Do you remember a shift?
The breaking point in my teens,
Yeah,
or
where you were able to move from that anger. Was there kind of like a moment where you felt a release from that?
I mean, my release was finishing high school. Gosh, just that was it. And I never really. I mean, I don't want to say that I've experienced bullying in such a way, but I knew that I was different, and people made it very clear that I was different.
Okay.
Although, like bullying was not something that was very, was not there. Maybe it was, maybe very, very small. But the difference was there.
Yeah.
Um, and I felt different again, of course. So I struggled a lot, and this is, of course, where my ADHD comes in, and being on the spectrum. I failed school. I failed my exams. I had to resit. I had to do a lot of things over and over again. I had to resit a lot, and that is not because I didn't try. It is because I felt sad and I was depressed, and I couldn't
Mm.
take up anything into my brain. And I, with the grace of the teachers who helped me a lot, and some extra support externally, I was able to just skim by. And I think that was helpful. But my secondary school, I mean, it lasted until I was 20. And then I went into university and then changed the subject that I was doing after a year. Like I was just trying to figure out who I was.
Yes.
And I think I want to say when I was, so I was 20 when I finished 19 or 20, I don't remember exactly, when I finished school. And then I went to university when I was 20, 21. And then my actual journey started when I was 22.
What was that starting point?
The starting point was being around individuals who also felt different.
Okay.
I started, I mean, it felt like that. It felt as much more of a safer space. It was, so I started a course in social work. And often, of course, with people who study social work, they bring some of themselves in there, right? They want to make sense of themselves. And I did not know that that I found myself in a group of individuals who wanted to understand themselves and the culture and the world around them. I mean, it was a branch, so it was social work, BA in social work, but specifically cultural and social education. So we spoke about society and we spoke about culture and we spoke about how to change, how to make changes and create programs so that people can understand more about themselves. But everybody who started that, they also wanted something for themselves. They wanted to understand themselves more, right? So I think that's when I really started.
And I guess that what you were doing back then in those early career moments is still so reflective of how you're showing up now.
Yes, yeah, but with more words,
Right, yeah.
able to articulate myself way better, with more grace. Um, even because even though I loved the education that I was doing and the opportunities that it gave me, I was still doing it for someone else.
Yeah.
So I was like, as long as I deal with other people's issues, even though I wanted to understand myself, as long as I'm dealing with other people's issues, I still don't have to deal with mine. Yeah, at one point my body was like, okay, I'm going to put you into another depression then until you figure it out. So I kind of came out of the depression when I was in my early 20s, and then I went back into a depression.
Mm.
And and you know what they say, right? If you're not going to sit, if you're not going to deal with the feelings, I'm going to make you sit down. That is what depression is. I'm going to make you sit down. I'm going to make you deal with the emotions. So I've gone through, two very intense depressions as a teen and as a young adult as well. And then I went into a kind of little small depression when I was, 28, 29. And then I was like, I need to stop doing this.
Yeah.
What am I doing? Who am I fooling here? You know,
What prevents you from going back into them now?
understanding what prevents me from going into them now.
Because when you have a history of it, I'm prone to episodes, I'm prone to burnout,
Yeah.
overwhelm.
Yeah.
And the last burnout I experienced, I know I will never go. I will actively avoid it. I can't guarantee, but when
Hmm.
you have a history, it's really easy to seep back into those patterns. So I'm always
Yeah.
curious to know what stops you, what helps you prevent those from happening.
I mean, the best thing that I could do for myself was go into therapy.
Mm.
And the journey within therapy was still, I was on and off. I was on and off. I would start therapy and then I would stop it. And I would start it and I would stop
Yeah.
it. And my therapist never called me out on that. She just allowed me to just, all right, you want to stop? Sure. Yeah, you want to start? You're having a little bit of an episode. You want to talk again? Okay, sure. So she didn't even interfere with that. She just allowed me to come back over and over and over again. And what also really helped was me moving across country, like moving here. I was 26 when I moved here. Had a depression still as well here. A lot of release of anger again here. Very, very childlike, very, inner child focused. Um, and I was very angry when I came to her as well, when I went to her as well. So even though, social work, the education of social work, uh, in theory, it was great, and I understood everything about, and I intellectualized everything. Um, I was like, right, I need to stop intellectualizing. I cannot intellectualize anymore. I intellectualize my way out of bullshitting myself. That is pretty much. And then I just was like, okay, we need to speak to someone. Like, who are you? Who are you fooling? Who are you fooling? So yeah, my therapist, and then I found friends who, because I took my stuff and I just left. I left with the shock of my parents. But I left, and I didn't even know where I was going to. But I knew that it was not the Netherlands that I was going to find myself.
Okay.
So yeah, therapy, finding friends who are gracious and soft.
Yeah.
And I still struggle with that because I grew up, it was tough. Like, it was tough love, there
Yeah.
was very much a lot of tough love there. Um, and I myself was a soft person. I was a soft child, but your parents had to get you ready for the world. So tough love
Yeah.
is needed. So I needed to find friends who were soft, and that is still a journey. Like, my friends are still softer than me, and they allow me to navigate the space. And when I feel anger, they allow me to have that. But yeah, good friends, man, good friends.
Yeah. That softness is sometimes when you have been independent, the way you sounded like you were independent and really kind of like quite there's a capability that comes with that independence, but there's
Yeah,
sometimes it's not always a healthy, and that softness is something that I've also struggled to access, and I'm also really grateful for my softer friends, and I'm allowing myself to tap into that softness, because again, soft kid just went too hard to the point of ridiculous, and now I'm
yeah,
kind of having to unlearn it.
yeah.
And I know you talk a lot about unlearning. I wonder, just moving on to the topic of inclusion, because you are someone that advocates and champions and fights for inclusion, through your work, through your
Mhm.
activism. Was there a definitive moment where you landed in inclusion? And you've spoke about kind of, COVID before, because for many of us in this space, again, that was the moment that we found ourselves doing what we do. And I wonder if there's a definitive moment where you found a voice or destination in inclusion.
It's always been part of it.
From the
I
social work.
think, true social work. Social work, I felt, was the way that I started it. My focus was very much on creating space for Black people. Um, I remember I really dived in deep. I worked with, did youth work for underrepresented communities. During my internship, I went to South Africa and worked for 7 months in with youngsters who were incarcerated, and really tried to understand the history of colonialism and the impact that it had in that way. Because, of course, I still receive a lot of privilege just being in the Netherlands, even though I've received racism. It's not the same in the way that it was in South Africa. So I navigated that, and yeah, worked on inclusion in that way, in that capacity. Um, I always wanted to work with youth or youngsters, and I think that is because I felt lost in my childhood teen self. So it was always there. I
Yeah.
think my first job, so I came here to do an MA, an MA, and my first job that I had was, or well, I had a part-time job, but the first job that was related to my work, my studies, was working with students and creating Black History Month events at the university, creating LGBT events together with students, and giving them the power to create events for themselves, and create galleries and exhibitions, and think about, just like support them with the project management. But they have always inclusion has always been at the center of my work.
Yeah.
I just didn't include myself in it, if that made sense.
Yeah.
And then later in life, I was like, oh, okay, actually, I have a lot. I have a lot to say. So maybe I should just, write more. And I've always written. I've always dabbled in poetry. I've always dabbled in that work. And that was slowly for me. I mean, I want to say 22, maybe 24, 26, like around that time. There's snippets of poetry where I think I tried to understand myself a little bit more, but it wasn't it was up until 29 that, yeah, I really needed to make a big change and put myself in that inclusion work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a bloody big change it was.
Gosh, yeah. And and as long as something needs to come out of me, I feel like I'm obligated to
Yeah.
write it, right? It is for my
Yeah.
younger self, but also again for the people that um uh need to find themselves in this writing. And the way that I see it is I'm really trying to use the privilege that my parents have given me, meaning privilege of education. Um, I mean, the reason why I got an MA was to piss all my teachers off because they wanted. I remember when I was young, my mom. Well, it's not a great anecdote, but my mom. I really, 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 really struggled in school, and I was really doing bad on tests. And I remember my mom telling me that the teacher thought that I was really good for, there's nothing wrong with it, but like as a cashier.
Hmm.
And my mom is a cashier. And my parents put a lot of money into making sure that I was educated correctly and I got the right teachers and I got the right tutors. But honestly, I really got my MA I was pissed. And when you're talking about like surviving and like being sort of independent, that got me to my MA, to getting my MA education. But now I feel like I have been put in this privileged position where I can now write smart, well about myself reflectively. And I, even though I am including myself in this inclusion work, I want to bring people along as well. So that's why I write a lot of reflective work. That's why my work is very reflective. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I love that motivation of just purely to piss them off. This is why
Yeah.
I did this. Yeah. Nothing
I
nothing
wanted to
like
make a,
telling what wanted to.
I wanted to make a mark,
Yeah.
but I knew it was not going to help. I mean, I tried to get it to help me in my professional career, but it did not work at all. It was
Yeah.
good for education, but then it needed my softness again, right? And that is
Yeah.
what I was battling it with from the age of 20. Yeah, well, I mean,
Mm.
in my 20s, until I started testosterone and, fully did that work. Yeah.
It's funny. My careers advisors told me I'd never get into the uni that I wanted to go to, and then and I was like, right, well, now I'm gonna fucking get into it, and I did. So
Honestly, to be queer is to be defiant, right? To be to be, that is what it is.
yeah, for sure.
Everybody else is just going to make us feel smaller
So
because
yeah,
they don't understand who we are and they don't want to see the full scope of us. And I think that's why we have to make space. That's why you're doing what you're doing, to
yeah,
create that, to make space,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. And we have to fight, and we fight to make that space. And you're right.
Yeah.
It's not just for others. It's not just for others. It's for ourselves as well because we have
Yeah,
to. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Um. Very, very quickly, is there someone that you can identify that has helped shape you the most along the way?
Identify with someone. I feel like I have learned a lot from a lot of different people.
Mm.
Um, but if I think, I mean, I have the "Still I Rise" quote from Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
As a tattoo that I have. It's my first ever tattoo. Um, and of course, that talks about womanhood, but it talks about resilience
Mm.
and continuing. And Lucille Clifton is also a poet who speaks very much about the defiance of just continuing to move. But I got it from a lot of people. And, like when I was growing up, I played tennis for a long time. So I got it from Serena Williams and Venus Williams. And then it went to more poetic, poets like Lucille Clifton and Maya Angelou, and then it shifted and it went to Nelson Mandela, and there's so many people, but they were all people who centered their blackness and took that very pridefully, and so I cannot say that there's not one person. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it's a hard question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What's up?
My final question for this segment is, looking back so far, what are you most
Hmm.
proud of to date?
I am proud of to date. I am proud of the first thing that comes up is just questioning. I'm happy that I always question things. That I was a quote unquote, I don't want to say difficult child, but I was a child that asked questions, that was weirded out by things that other people would be like, well, that's just normal. And I was like, that's not normal. It's normal to ask for consent, for example, right? It's not normal for people to be touching on people, right? So I always had this weird, not weird, but I always was asking questions, and I'm proud of that I always asked questions, that I continued doing that. And even though I was very much lost in the world, I knew that there was something that I let's just say I kept on questioning until I found my North Star. That is what I'm proud of. I just found my North Star. It took me a very long time to get there, but I found it. So I'm very proud of that.
Some people don't.
It's hard work. It's not easy. If you're because this is also one thing. You have to keep going. Like once you start the healing journey, you gotta go to the other end. You
Yeah.
cannot just stop. So, and I think I wholeheartedly understand why people do not want to get started. They want to stay in their safe little bubble. And even if that means being miserable, it's your life. But for me, it was either this or not being on this planet, and I refuse to do that. I guess. So yeah, that's it.
The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day rave, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Are you ready for some quickfire questions?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you?
It's called Tomboy. It is a film, a French film that was released in 2011, I want to say, by Celine Sciamma. But it was Tomboy, and I watched it and I was like, oh, hey, that's me. And in that story, this child is coming of age and is trying to understand their gender. And that was my start of my own. I don't know how old I was, but I was in the Netherlands then. So that was Tomboy.
Tomboy.
Yeah.
What's a saying you live by and one that you would put in the bin?
So I have another tattoo, and I do live by that. And pretty much the saying means, or it's very short from, if I were to explain it, it's kind of like a poem. Is however you move in life, your ancestors are with you. So move forward, keep walking, and yeah, that is it. Whatever step you take, they are always there. They're always beside you. I'm not saying it correctly. I'll send you the full outline. But yeah, that is a saying that I live by. that I'm
And one,
protected, that I'm there. Yeah.
one for the bin.
I think a lot of people use this term too loosely. Everything happens for a reason.
Oh yeah,
Don't say that. I don't like that. I wanna have a bit more of a critical reflection and engagement with that sentence, because I feel that if you're saying that to someone else, you do not know that it's like, if I say everything happens for a reason, I don't have to engage with you and your emotions. I don't have
yeah,
to engage with the discomfort that I feel in my body. I don't like that. So yeah, everything happens for a reason. It needs to go. It needs to be changed, though, I
straight
think.
in the bin.
Yeah.
What's been the best adventure of your life so far?
I mean, starting testosterone, starting testosterone, trusting myself, trusting the emotions, sitting with the emotions. I had to pull myself apart and pull my, just, yeah, just completely release myself and start over. And I think that has been my best adventure so far. Yeah.
Love that. And what are three words that you would use to describe you and your origin story?
I want to say, although we're moving a bit away from it, but it is true. Resilience
Yeah.
is one. Grace, even though I'm getting late to it. It's still there. I think I've always kind of had grace, even though I didn't know that it was there, and I'm getting better with it. And I want to say always ongoing, always movements. Oh, there's a specific third word, but movement, always ongoing, always on the go. AKA, I did not like where my life was going in the Netherlands. I packed up and I left, and
Yeah.
I started over. And yeah, always be in movement, always keep moving. It's not a sentence, it's not a word, but you know what I mean.
Keep moving. I love that. Keep moving.
Keep moving. Yeah, just movement.
Let's fast forward a bit. What exciting things do you have coming up?
What exciting things do I have coming up? I am dabbling more in writing and really, really learning how to write. What I would love to do is maybe write a book, putting it out in the ether. And of course, it's going to be a reflective story, but it's going to be about sort of the change that I've made. So I don't have anything coming up that is physical, but it is something that I'm considering. Yeah.
Amazing. Exciting. I keep an eye out for that. What brings you joy?
Brings me joy. Rest. Oh my gosh. Rest brings me joy. Going to the sauna brings me joy.
Yeah.
And being in the mountains brings me joy. Hiking, learning how to hike, being in nature brings me a lot of joy. And doing it with people who are. So, what I love about London, and I really have to say that because I don't think that they have the. London is, like we both said, like kind of we live in a bubble, and they do a
Mm.
lot of good community work. And I am gonna really give a lot of my thanks to Transana, which is a organization or just a community that has been brought together by a person who wanted to have access to the sauna as a trans person, and I'm going there this evening, and I love that they have that. And there
Yeah.
are spaces where there's an evening where there are only trans people, and it's great, and you feel safe. And yeah, sauna is really for me a very accessible one,
Yeah.
and it's very enjoy
Yeah.
a lot of.
We spoke before we jumped on about kind of, not feeling that all spaces are for all of us. As a queer person
Yeah,
that is now into fitness, I never thought those spaces were about me. And we talked about the lack of black representation when it comes to the outdoors and hiking and such.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
know with swimming, I know from talking to so many trans folk that swimming, and I imagine that it's a similar thing with saunas and such, is something that many trans people just have this fear of because of the rhetoric in society right now.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. I think with society, there is, with trans people, it's also like you're not allowed to take up space in your body, but you're
Yeah,
also not allowed to take up space in a space where you're supposed to rest and
yeah. And find joy.
and get a connection with your body,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I started to start, or I went to trans sauna a year before I got into, or before I had my top surgery. And I did it very consciously because I wanted to be in spaces where other people already had the surgery. And I wanted to see and visualize myself in this resting state after top surgery. And I think that really helped and made my transition the way it was. But I really owe it up to people who just, wanted to start and be comfortable and create trans sauna. And I love it. I really owe a lot to them.
Big up to the trans sauna team.
100%. Yep.
My penultimate question is, do you have a quick takeaway for anyone wanting to either create an inclusive space or put inclusion out there?
I mean, to put inclusion out there, start with yourself. I mean, you have to start somewhere. I think the lesson that I've learned is, even though you're always going to be working for other people, it's gonna come to you at one point. You can put your emotions out there and try to hide yourself in the work that you're doing, but you got to stop BSing yourself and try to see yourself in the work that you do as well. And you're allowed to take up space in yourself, in your body, in your emotions. And I think because I'm doing that now, I'm reaching people differently, and I feel like I'm reaching people so much more authentically, and it's powerful. And I really enjoy sort of this path that I'm on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it too. It's beautiful to
Ah,
see.
thank you.
Beautiful to
Thank you.
see. My final question for you, Z, is this. Do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
Start slow. I mean, I don't. Is it encouragement? I don't know. Um, Start with something that feels comfortable for you. If you're going to go down that journey, start with something that feels comfortable for you. It is a journey. Once you start the path, once you start that journey, there's no turning back, just so you know. So when you are starting, start small, start with something that you can hold, and then build on from that. That is how it worked for me. I started with small poetries here and there, doing a little bit of, engagement work here and there. And then at one point, I couldn't go back. And then I, really surrendered and let go. But start with what you can do, one step at a time, one step at a time.
In a
Yeah.
world that is so crazy and relentless and demanding, I think we
Mm.
need to be reminded of what you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, small steps. Because I think if I didn't do it, yeah, I would have been squandered by the outside world, and it almost squandered me. So I think, it's okay. Yeah, you can take your time.
Z, I'm so grateful for you for spending this time with you.
I'm
And
grateful for you. I love
well,
this.
it's a lot of mutual love. Thank you for being a guest on Pause and Rewind. Brilliant guest. And I can't wait to see you soon.
Yeah, great to see you, and thank you so much for having me on.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
How cool is Z? I did say at the beginning that Z really is one of the coolest and wisest people I know. I really, really cherish this conversation with Z. I really do. I'm so grateful for the opportunities I get to work with them. There were a couple of jump out moments from this podcast and the conversation for me. Firstly, when reflecting on Little Z, and I asked around how much of Little Z do you see in yourself now, and Z's words were, "I'm back." And that really speaks to the way we can, the way that once we find ourselves and we come into our own and we become comfortable with who we are and how we show up in the world, that we are able to tap back into the little versions of ourselves that are free and happy and untroubled. And I think that was a really beautiful moment. The other defining moment for me was when Z first put that bit of testosterone on themselves, and that that was such a moment for them in terms of their transness, their identity, and their transition, and who they are and how they're moving forward with that as well. Again, challenging misconceptions and expectations around what it means and what it feels like to be trans and non-binary. So yeah, and just so grateful for Z expressing themselves in the way that they do as well, through their writing, through the way that they speak. They're such a talented force. And yeah, dance with fear. I'm taking that away as well. Dance with fear. Z, thank you so much for being a brilliant guest on Pause and Rewind. Thank you so much for listening. As always, please do like, subscribe, share, comment. These conversations deserve to be heard, and that really, really is super helpful when it comes to algorithms and getting these stories out there. Stay tuned for more amazing guests on Pause and Rewind. See you soon. Cheers.